Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show. Man, we're glad to have you guys with us. Dan, earlier in the year, first of all, welcome, Dan.
Welcome, Chris.
Yeah, always great to do these with you, and I'm excited about what we're putting together today, because much like we did around strategies and some other things, gosh, almost a year back with this podcast, what you and I have put together here is we're about to do a 3-part series of what we certainly think are high-value topics that are going to have really great takeaways for everybody in the industry. And certainly marketing folks and C-suite folks and leaders of all types in the financial services industry. So I'm excited about what we've put together, and to explain to everyone kind of what this is born out of is work that your agency and mine have done together in working with community banks, Dan, that you've done a lot of the big picture marketing strategy work and kind of the roadmap of a lot of that. And then my team has kind of come alongside and partnered with you on strategy and then moving into the implementation and a lot of these. So what's really cool, and you and I are going to do in these 3 episodes, are, I think, the really valuable takeaways categorized as you and I have done from kind of notes that are laying on our desk from the whole year and conference presentations, and you've written blogs about this. And so this is kind of a compilation of things. And I know you're going to explain a little bit of what that is going to propagate as on paper. And we're going to do it in 3 categories. So today's episode is going to be around brand. Then our next episode is going to be around digital. And the last one in this series is going to be what we call local. Yep. And Dan, I know you and I both think these are going to be ones that everybody's going to want to grab their notepads and all of that. And a reminder to everyone up front, if you aren't signed up for it, go to bankmarketingshow.com and be sure to sign up for the Bank Marketing Minute, because the day after each of those episodes are released, that's our Bank Marketing Minute that we email out to everyone, and you get the newsletter recap of these. So be sure to do that. So yeah, Dan, I'm really excited about what we've put together here, and maybe you can put a little more meat on the bone.
Yeah, so really it's a framework that encompasses all the little things that you need to think about with a bank marketing strategy, right? Like there's a lot of pieces of that, and we've done episodes, and there's plenty of stuff out there written as to like what a strategic plan looks like, right? But in working with banks on those, right, like I find like it's easy to take a strategic plan template and just sort of like sit down to fill it out. But what this framework does is really help you think through each piece and how they all fit together, right? It's kind of a prerequisite for a written strategic plan, if you will, right? So the brand, digital, local things, right? If you if you sign up for the Bank Marketing Minute, we're going to link to a longer article that I put together on this, which takes you through it. There's a good Venn diagram of all these pieces to help keep you organized. So little plug there. If you email us at contact@bankmarketingshow.com, I'll send you a nice like high-res version of that Venn diagram. But basically, and that basically is what we're going to be talking about for the next three episodes. So it's really diving into like when we say brand, right? What are the things you need to be thinking about for your brand? What are the things you need to be thinking about for your digital presence, for your local presence? And, collectively, all those things work together to build trust, to find your the target audience you want to reach, to kind of know what to say when you get there, and build loyal customers over time, which is the goal, right? So that's really what this framework is. But it's kind of it's a lot for one episode. So we've got a series here to round out the next couple episodes, round out the year, and get you going into next year with the
There
plan.
you go. Yeah, each of these categories has so much important information in it that needs to be segmented within itself. We didn't want to just throw all of this stuff into some giant conversation that would be too much. So, yeah, so today we're going to dive into brand, Dan, and I love how you kind of introed an important question around strategies to kind of start this brand discussion.
Yeah, it's really what we're talking about here. I think there's a lot of people in the industry kind of conflate brand and marketing kind of together, and they're obviously related. But generally, when we say brand, we're talking about your brand, your logo, the feel, the emotional stuff, right? The trust building, the
messaging, all of the brand voice, all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, like the non-tangible stuff. And when we talk about like marketing or marketing strategy, that's more of like the boots on the ground. How do you reach people? What do you say when you get there?
Which platforms, the implementation, all of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like we're talking about brand. We're talking about the first part, the brand stuff today. And as we get through these 3 episodes, then, like I said, from there, then you can kind of go back to our marketing strategy, strategic planning episodes and put it together once you understand the brand, digital, local kind of foundation of it. But that's right. Like the reason we go back to brand so often is because, banking is a pretty commoditized industry, right? You can get that checking account from anywhere. And brand is the stuff that makes your checking account different than anyone else's, even though at the end of the day, it's still a checking account. But to be different, you need to wrap that emotional representation around it and occupy a space in somebody's brain to be memorable, have them come back to you when they're ready to get a checking account. So it's super important. It's also super hard for most banks to think about because bankers like to think about like the why. Like, well, we're going to send emails to do cross-sell. Great. Like, that's great. We're going to send 1,000 emails. We'll get, 100 opens and we'll get a couple, new accounts from that. Like, it's a very tangible, numeric thing.
Quantifiable. Yeah. And that's what everybody likes the most.
Yeah. And it's just easy to default to it. And it's easy to see the results specifically. But brand is not that, right? Brand is a feel kind of thing. Brand is, it's typically many months of working at it to recognize results. And then when you see results, you might not always be able to tie it directly to the brand. There's still going to be that email campaign later, even if it's the best brand in the world or the worst brand in the world, like you're still doing, you might still do an email campaign later to actually get the accounts to open. And so often the attribution goes to that email, that email campaign or whatever that, bottom funnel thing is that gets people to respond. But, like that email campaign will work better with a stronger brand and it won't work very well with a weak brand or a weak call to action. So brand we're talking about brand first because it's like the foundation for everything else. I want people to take away from this, like it's important, even though it's hard to talk about hard to have a meeting with a, bank board around colors, right? Or the right name or kind of swoop in your logo.
Right.
Important.
Yeah. So what you and I put together for the episode today that we're going to talk about is we kind of pulled out several just key points that we want to hit that I guess are important boxes that you need to check or things that you really need to be cognizant of going forward to do brand successfully, right? And, one of the ones we start with, and I was talking to you recently, Dan, about this, and years ago from some marketing guru, I heard that a logo is 7% of a brand. That's actually, that's only a part of what it is. Yes, it's the tip of the spear, and it's, what they see, and yes, it needs to be right. But it's the presentation and the messaging and the communication identity with your key audiences, and everybody in marketing understands too. it's actually much more about how you're perceived than it is about how we think our brand is. So as a bank, well, we think our brand looks great and our color, and all that. Yeah, but how does the community and how do your target audiences perceive your brand? Do they even know it? Do they even, all those things that we're going into?
I was thinking about this just the other day. I went out to dinner with my family, and I'm not going to name the restaurant, but my kids wanted to go to a big, one of the big national chains. And, it's a well-known, household name kind of chain. But my initial reaction when the kids said when I go there was just, the experience is going to be bad, right? Like we'd been there before, and it's slow, and the restaurant's a little dirty, and it's just not going to be what you expect. And so that's my brand perception, right? But then we go in there, and it was all of that, right? It was dirty, and we stood at the restaurant had barely had any people in it. We stood at the front for at least literally 5 minutes before anybody acknowledged us being there, and we got seated. But as we sat there, more and more people came in, the restaurant kind of filled up, and meanwhile my kids order a root beer and they're out of root beer. Then they're like, no, we'll have a Sprite, and they're out of Sprite. All these little things, it's not a great experience, but yet people keep coming. And that's, for me, the brand had these bad connotations, but that brand, is not a great restaurant experience, but people keep coming because the positive side of the brand. And the same thing happens in banks, right? It's, if you're, a strong brand that builds a lot of trust with the community can override some bad experiences, right? And ideally, you don't have bad experiences, but you do. Everybody does.
Yep.
And the brand can kind of help smooth some of those things out. And on the flip side, if your logo and your brand feel is super dated, you're not going to attract new people because they're going to just have a perception of what that experience is before they even reach out or give you a chance.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a brand, there's an important point there as to what it looks like and, all of those things. And I love how you differentiated between brand strategy and marketing strategy. And I guess one of your important points is, Dan, they need to be in that order.
Yeah.
Because that brand strategy, those things do need to be shored up. The color palettes, the fonts, the styling, the bunch of the things that we're going to hit on today, and those need to be shored up before you go put the boat in the water and take it to your audiences. So that's very true.
You need to do a lot of work on that before you get out to the audiences. And this isn't right. We did a recent episode on changing your brand, right, or doing a new logo, changing your name. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but it's more of just I think this gets into our second point, right? So if the first point is the difference between brand and marketing strategy, the second point I want to make is consistency in branding, right? Yep. So it's, to me, consistency, being consistent with your brand is probably more important than the brand itself, right? You need to have this good base, but if you're all over the place with the brand, it's going to be less memorable. So if you take the time to set out your brand message, your story, the style of it, the consistency of the logos and the way you use them, and the consistency of taglines. I can't tell you, I've seen so many banks with many, many different taglines. And, but if you take the time to be consistent, it builds that trust. You become more memorable.
Well, that consistency creates momentum for the brand also, because if what's on the banner on the high school baseball field, with your brand looks totally different than what's being propagated, whatever, on your digital ads and your website and all of that, then you lost that momentum. You lost because of the consistency that you're talking about, Dan, and so a lot of times these things aren't rocket science, but like you say, are there kind of different tagline utilizations? Are there different, are there no brand standards that are being held to everywhere that your brand appears? The high school football ad, as well as how it looks on your own website and all of those things.
Yeah,
and that consistency should be a non-negotiable.
It's pretty simple, right? I think a lot of companies just overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
And we're gonna change the tagline to fit. We're gonna come up with a tagline that works for the baseball game, and we're gonna come up with a tagline that works for the website. And what you're doing is diluting that brand. And yes, you should sort of customize your, the overall creative and the message for the channel, but you have to like have that consistency in the core brand elements. Like, don't change the colors of the logo, don't stretch it out, have that consistency. And then, there's other places you can still customize or differentiate for the channel, but you have to build that base.
Yep. Well, so we talked about identity and consistency, and I know a third key point that we wanted to pull out too, Dan, is about leveraging customer stories. And that's tremendous, because it's one thing the way that we want to tell our story, but when our audiences are looking at our brand, and if they hear customer stories, then there's an instant relatability there that speaks volumes more than we could ever say in the entirety of our messaging, that we're never going to be able to capture anybody long enough to listen to the entirety of our messaging.
Your customers saying it builds a lot more trust than you saying it. And,
absolutely.
If most banks want their brand identity to be around their great service, and that they customize, you customize financial products for your customers. Well, if you just say that, every bank says that. So if you just say it, it doesn't really land. But if you have your customers say it, when we do like customer testimonial videos, we're asking the customers like, well, tell us how this bank has made a difference in your life. And the tendency of the bank is like, well, no, but that's just for that customer. We need to make a statement that applies to everybody. And you don't like it. That just the power of that customer telling the story. Yes, maybe they're talking about a solution that you crafted just for them, but what that's telling other customers is, oh, this bank will craft a solution for me.
There you
go. The specifics are great. The more specific you can get, the more it shows you care. So, I think our perspective, I think your perspective too, Chris, is like, the more you can get customers to write the testimonials, write reviews, get in front of the camera. Not that it doesn't matter what they're saying, but you can have them say, just be true to themselves and true to, their passion for working with you. And it'll come through.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is a customer's, a quote and a testimonial of the customer talking about how your treasury management services help them, whatever, or help their business, or, whatever the case may be. It's just the fact that a customer is saying that. And ideally, if we have a good cross-section of those, then somebody is going to portray their customer story, and they look relatable to me because they're a small business owner, or they live in my community, or they, whatever the case may be. They don't necessarily have to literally look like me, but it's it's just that trust and relatability that speaks so much more than our own platforms can ever say. I like how you said that. It's one thing if I say it as the bank.
Yeah, if you say it, if the bank says it comes across as salesy. The customer says that it comes across as, from the heart and and truthful.
Yeah.
It's I compare this to like, picture a used car dealership, right? And you have like the sales guy at the used car dealership saying, "We're great, we'll give you all the service." And you're watching that, and you're thinking, "I've bought cars before. I know that's not true." But you have a customer saying, like, "Oh, I guess it must be true if like these customers are having a good experience." And not to compare banks to used car dealerships, but just as a sort of extreme example, like you can literally be reading from the same script, but it comes across so different when a customer says it versus like the owner of the company.
There you go. Very true. Yep.
Yeah. So, talk about consistency, talk about stories. I think the next point is with brand, you've got to keep hammering it. So the fourth point is, have some sort of always on awareness campaign. You need to be consistently present, right? So a lot of banks I work with, we'll say, hey, well, people know us in this location, but we're really trying to expand to this other location and nobody knows who we are. And so we'll run you can run digital display ads, and we'll get into digital in the next episode, but you're just putting your brand out there, right? It's an awareness campaign. You're not expecting, you're trying to do like the highway billboard in digital form, right? But just put your brand out there. You're not expecting people to click and open accounts right away. Takes a long time to build trust, but to really build brand, you need to have something always out there that people in your target market will see. And so digital is one way. We're going to talk about local also in a future episode, but like it's just having that brand consistently out there. Don't just do a flurry. Too many companies will say like, well, here's $1,000 of budget for digital ads. Let's run it. Oh, we didn't get anything from it. Digital ads don't work.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how many times, over the years we've heard, well, we tried some ads on Meta for a month or so and we didn't really get anything from it. Yeah. I'm going, you weren't even warmed up yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Brand building is months.
Exactly.
Months.
Yeah. Or that's right. We tried Google pay-per-click ads for $500 for a month, and we didn't really get anything from it. And it's like, well, that's not even it's just save your money,
right?
If you're not going to do that. But the always on, and I love how you said that is if you're going to increase presence in a community that you're weak in, where one of your outlying branches is, for example, something like that, that has to be ever present. We see the big national brands do it, and it's why, the Progressive and the other, insurance companies, and they do it over and over, and we see it over and over and over and over again. And they don't go from one marketing platform to another marketing platform. They do it on numerous ones all the time. Now, I realize we're talking about a budget question here, but it can also be around part of your brand strategy that you need to pick your best, most efficient means of getting there. That's the marketing strategy part. But the brand part is, and have it there all the time.
Yeah.
It's better to spend less and stretch it out for longer periods of time than it is to try to, boom, one big shoot and, do it for a month or 3 months and then, well, it didn't work. Well, decrease the spend and run it for a year so it's there all the time.
Yeah, it's layers. It's layers of campaigns, right? So, So how can you structure the layers? And you have this always on layer that's just getting the brand out there. And then on top of that, you might have more specific campaigns that are designed for, conversion and getting people to open accounts. But I think the way to think about it is to start with the audience you want to reach. So if it's first time home buyers, right? Like, what do they look like in your community? Now, how old are they? What's their income? Where are they looking to buy houses? Do they have young kids? Do they not have kids yet? Are they sitting at baseball games? Are they, where do they go out in town? What media do they consume? And how can you be a part of those things?
Mm-hmm.
When they're driving by on the street, your brand is there. When they're watching TV, right? And do you want to advertise on broadcast TV to reach an older audience, or streaming to reach a younger audience, or just digital? Like, there's a lot that goes into it, but it's like, you can't build brand in spurts. It's got to just be, you've got to figure out, well, what's that media? What are those channels that our target audience is always consuming, right? And that channel could be like a road that everybody drives down to commute.
There you go.
So you put a sign on that road, right? Like it doesn't have to be a huge digital ad. It's just thinking through from the customer perspective, where can you keep, hammering that? So over a 6-month time period, they see your logo, they see your brand, 100 times, and that's what builds the awareness. And
it's really about commitment to that. Is that once you find a good strategy, commit to it and do it. Don't throw a dart. It's far better to have a shotgun approach of as far as the like you say, the always on. Not to be too scattered, to be clear, but to be consistently and prolonged. Both of those things.
Yeah, I mean, if a bank came to me and said, hey, we have a $30,000 budget, And we want to use that to come up with a new name and logo for our bank, right? I'd rather, if that's all you've got, right? I'd rather spend a little bit on really evaluate first. Do you really need a new name and logo? But make sure that you're not spending the $30,000 on brand research just to come up with the name. You've got to have the bulk of that should go to these always on awareness campaigns.
Yeah.
But too many banks do the opposite, right? Of, hey, let's go hire a designer and come up with a logo, and hey, we got this great new brand. But you don't, because nobody knows about it because you haven't run an awareness campaign.
There you go.
So it's thinking about that awareness campaign is, as or more important than the brand itself, because it can, having something always on and consistent, and the consistency point too, can overcome a lot of shortcomings with the brand itself.
There you go.
So,
Dan, another key point that we wanted to pull out that's probably a bit more of an obvious one for brand too, that I know we wanted to dive into a little bit too, is how the elements of brand shape perception. And I think that's a really important one. You even brought up the quote of, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And we understand that. Video is even more so. So you're right. So is it, how are we using elements of brand to shape perception? Do they create excitement? Do they create emotion? Do they create, what are we being purposeful about what the brand is inciting, hopefully, in our key audiences?
Yeah. People remember images and stories far more than they do a tagline or a logo.
Yep.
So,
or an extended chunk of copy.
Yeah. For sure. Nobody's reading those things today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Everybody's used to the, 280 character, social media posts, and that's our attention span. And so but if we can have a visual or conjure up a visual in people's minds, that's what's memorable.
Yeah.
So it's the video of your customer. Your customer does a testimonial and then shakes hands with the banker, right? It's seeing images of the community and versus just stock imagery, that type of stuff that is part of it. And that's part of the brand identity. And part of your brand identity documentation can be, hey, we're not using stock images. We're only using local photography. Think about those things and how can you make it more specific, right? Because a photo of a customer in the local town square is, much more powerful than just some random stock image of a generically happy customer that is sitting on their couch with their dog or their grandson. Even if you're saying the same words over it, you're going to remember more that local stuff, the specific.
Well, and it speaks very deeply again into that relatability.
Yeah.
It's not something that's contrived. It's something that, that looks like me, that feels like me, that, again, as a community member or whatever the case may be. So that relatability that it speaks into by having that perception of how the brand is propagated makes it feel approachable, is a key part of it, relatable, all of those things, and the visuals, photo, video, how those things are done as far as transmitting the brand is crucial.
Yep. Yeah. So I think all of these sum up, right? We've got 2 more points, but the next one is just all of these put together, goes to differentiating how to differentiate your brand in a commoditized and competitive market, right?
The big differentiation. Yeah. Welcome to the banking industry, right?
Yeah, and we touched on this at the top of the episode, but differentiation equals profit, full stop, especially in banking, right? If you're not differentiated, you're not getting as big of a piece of the pie as others, and it's tough, right? But the brand is the foundation. The brand is the foundation of that. So the more specific you can be in the visuals that you use, in the way that you do customer testimonials, the better.
Yeah.
There's a bank near me that does these really well-known ads that's just customers sitting around a mahogany table in a black room, right? There's no back. They're just sitting around this table, and they're talking about, they're talking kind of just off camera about their experience with the bank, and feels super old school, and it's like, but that has become that bank's differentiation, right? They have multiple versions of this ad, and they're just kind of, no, that's, if you bring up that, if you say that bank's name to someone here, you're like, oh yeah, that's the bank with the ads of the people around the table. Like, that's sort of an extreme example, but it's like, you want to have something unique,
Yes.
that shows up every time your brand does.
Well, and that is by understanding within your brand what your bank's personality is, and then propagating that unapologetically.
Yeah.
And so it's not being something that you're not. It's actually the opposite of that. It's being exactly who you are, much like an individual human. Don't be wishy-washy about that. Be unapologetic about that. Make sure it relates to the audiences that you're trying to reach as a brand, and go after that. Dan, I was trying to be careful to not hurt feelings, but I was presenting to a big ICBA group this late in the summer, and some things came up around this, and I kind of stopped the conversation from the stage, and I said, listen, who in here as a community bank in your marketing says we offer checking accounts, we offer loans, we just vanilla, all that? And no duh, you're a bank. Do we really need to expend our brand and our marketing energy to say we offer checking accounts and loans? When I do a strategy workshop with a new bank, I'm often tempted to bring, like a magician would, like bring index cards pre-written with what I know their answers will be. Right.
Yes. And this is I'm not trying to, not trying to offend. It's how banks think about themselves. And it's about, everybody goes to the service, everybody goes to the history. And it's just, I think to differentiate, you really need to align with what the consumers care about. Yeah. If I ask a bank in a strategy workshop, what makes you different? It's local decisions. It's, we customize our financial products to suit your needs, right? Which doesn't, bankers, when they say that, think it means something, but when consumers hear it, it doesn't mean anything. Well, great. I just need a checking account. Why should I get it from you? I don't need a custom, yes, there are some customers that need customized things, but you've got to get a little bit more specific.
And those differentiators can be vertical or horizontal. So they can be things like, okay, well, if your customer service is that great, well, show it, prove it, give specific instances of it. How does that differentiate you from the regional and national banks? And you got to really be explicit about it. Show it, prove it, use customer stories to tell it, those types of things. Or it's a vertical, like your agency and mine, Dan, is right in the middle of co-working on a totally new brand project and marketing and all of that with a bank together. Your agency and mine that are unapologetic. They're an ag bank. That's who we are. That's what we do. We serve these communities, and these are ag communities, and that is, sure, we do other things, but unapologetically, that's what we're really, really great at. And that creates a shield really around some of the regionals and nationals coming in there, probably because that's the primary economic engines in that area, and they are the bank that does that, so they do it really well. So again, we want to poke their chest out about that. Do it unapologetically. And that, man, that's the differentiator that, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not only does it make you competitive in your marketplace, it can actually keep more competitors from coming in an instance like that. So it's figuring out what is it for you and your bank that is that differentiator, or the key differentiators in a short list, right, Dan?
Yeah, and I think you have to really do that. What the tendency is to say, well, what are our differentiators? And you're thinking about your customer base overall, and that's where you get to service. And service is the thing that is differentiated across all of our customers. But like, I think to do it well, you need to go a deeper level, right? Like service means something very different to the normal kind of retail customer that keeps a little bit in their checking account versus the high volume, small business or medium-sized manufacturing company, farm operation. Like the farmer wants to work with a bank that will come to them and do banking in their tractor while they're plowing the fields, which is like something a lot of banks do. But like, I don't, as a regular retail customer, I don't care. Like, I don't need that. I don't need a banker to come to my house. Right? I don't even, I don't even want to go to the bank. So my definition of service would be, can I just chat with somebody like online? I don't want to talk. I just, I have a quick question, but I'm busy and I'm running around with my kids and whatever. So it really, just saying great service doesn't do enough for me to know that I might look at your logo and say, your logo is 50 years old. You're not going to have online chat, which is really important to me.
Yeah.
That's
a great brand example. There you go. Yeah.
It means service is too general and it means something different. So that's where, get the farmer, right? Get the retail customer in front of a camera to talk about the specifics. Yeah. And, it'll go much further. And, and when Bank of America, when Chase does that, gets their customers on, one, half the time it's actors, not customers. And two, it's they're not relatable because it's a customer in, LA or a customer in New York.
Yep.
Versus a farmer that's lived in the community where your branch is for his whole life, her whole life. So, anyway, the thing, there's a little trick we do in like the strategy workshops of like asking why or asking so what, like 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Right. So like you say like services are differentiator.
Deeper and deeper levels. Right.
Yeah. So what? Right. Or get more specific and go to the next level and keep doing that. And at some point you reach a point where like that, that is different. That feels uniquely us. And that's what you want, your message, your story to be.
Yep. There you go. Well, Dan, to go into our last point and wrap a really important ribbon around a lot of this too, that's probably been on the minds of our listeners going, well, the question then, and an important point related to all of it is tracking success. So we do all this around our brand. I mean, the identity, consistency, and customer stories and differentiation. And so, okay, we check all those boxes. Then how do we track success? And again, in our next episode, I know we're going to dive deep into digital, for example, and marketers understand how we're tracking success there, right? Impressions, clicks, conversions, those types of things. So, yep, we got that, and that's great. So how do we do that with a brand? That's a bit more of a tougher question.
That's the $1 million question.
The metrics around that. So does it have value? And is everything that we talked about today imperative? Absolutely. But how do we measure it?
Well, when you're running a digital ad, you're counting impressions and clicks and, form fills on your website, and it's really straightforward. But, we said this at the top of the episode as well, is like brand is a little bit more ethereal. So when we're talking brand metrics, typically those would be done through a customer survey, right? Or not a customer survey, but just a, more general survey in your market, usually done by a third party. Obviously, customer surveys you can email out yourself, but you need a third party to really understand your brand, kind of brand penetration, brand awareness in your market. But that can get you a metric, right? Like they call 1,000 people randomly sampled in your community. How many have heard of you? There's some simple metrics to do. It may cost some money to like run a survey like that. So anyway, there's like the survey driven kind of external ones. And then there's the more anecdotal, right? If you've got a sales team.
That's what I was going to say is get the CSRs to ask.
Get the CSRs to ask, or right? One of the things I talk to my banks about a lot is ask, like, why do brand awareness when we could just put that money into a Google ad campaign to actually get accounts? And it's because, most of your profit is from handshakes and from from being out in the community and the commercial side of stuff. So, but what brand awareness can do there is shorten those conversations. Like you get your salespeople, if you don't have good brand awareness, your salespeople today may be starting with knocking on the door and saying, hey, we're such and such bank. And, we've been around this many years, blah, blah, blah. But you have a strong brand that changes to knock on the door and say, oh yeah, I've heard of you guys. Tell me more. Tell me how you're different. The conversation starts from a different point, and you're building, there's some trust built up already. And so like anecdotally, you can track success by, and again, this doesn't happen on the order of weeks, it's months, but do this once a year with your sales team and say like, how many people have heard of you, right? What is our, the length of our sales pipeline? How long do people sit in the sales pipeline? And if those things are shortening, then you know that the brand is having an impact.
We also describe it sometimes, Dan, as marking the tide rising. So it's not just your web traffic. It's not just your lobby traffic. It's not just your CSR is asking, how did you hear about us? Those types. The answer is it's all of the above. So being able to track and try to measure success of your brand is, if you see all of these different things going up by 5%, or then the brand is being built.
Yeah.
It's not just your email open rates. It's not just it's looking at everything having to do with both your brand strategy and your marketing strategy. And if the tide rises a little bit, then the markers are going up a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. And that then you know that the brand is being built in my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. And one metric we look at a lot too is just branded searches on Google, right? You can get a little analytics tool to help you with this, but how many in a given month, how many times have people searched for your bank's name? Right? Gone to Google and typed your bank's name into it. Right. And there's always going to be some, because some customers don't remember your URL and they'll go to Google and type in your name to get there. But if you're doing brand building activities, brand awareness campaign, you should be tracking branded searches, right? And you should see those going up. And then you'll know that you're getting some more awareness. Most people don't click on ads, but you might see an ad and build some memory of that brand, and later when you're looking for a bank, you'll go search for the bank name.
Yep, that's right. Well, cool. Well, Dan, man, this has been some chunky stuff. I know that, again, to reemphasize to everybody all of these key points that we've covered and kind of a summary of this whole brand strategy discussion that we've had today, get on the Bank Marketing Minute list by going to our website or emailing us. And, that's one way to do it. And you'll get a summary and a recap of a lot of this. Share this episode with folks too, with others in your bank. And if you're kind of the one sitting there going, yeah, then, but I need the rest of our team to buy into this, share this episode and let them know about the Bank Marketing Show and how this information is helpful. And then, Dan, the other piece too is this is part 1 of 3 in this series that we're doing that I think, again, is going to be just a tremendous, speaking of raising the tide, is going to give a lot of value.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, we're going to talk about digital. We're going to talk about local, and again, they all tie together. And so, sign up for the Bank Marketing Minute, and there'll be kind of the written version of it. And then, like I said, we have a really cool Venn diagram that just sums up the framework of these 3 episodes. And if you sign up for the Bank Marketing Minute or email us, contact bankmarketingshow.com, we'll get that out to you. And yeah. It's a lot to kind of take in, but there's a lot to think about.
Very good. Well, Dan, good stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it, and looking forward to these next 2 in this series. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris. See you, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.